Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. With my roughly 2-month YouTube hiatus, I feel kind of rusty standing in front of you guys over here. But you know what? I'm gonna take a leap of faith and have as much fun as I can while doing it. In any case, I've been juggling a handful of games at the same time recently in an attempt to catch up on as many games as I can. There have been way too many that I put on the back burner, and I gotta say, 2023 has been absolute fire in terms of gaming this year, and we're not even done. By the end of October, we're getting Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2, and those are two games that I'm very, very much looking forward to. I don't know how I'm gonna have time to play them, but you know what, those are future Mike problems. Anyway, Sea of Stars is most certainly a game that deserves some recognition in this wonderful year of gaming. Not only because I relish the chance about talking about the indie game development community, but also because it's some local homegrown game development from Quebec. Shout out to Quebec and shout out to Sabotage Studios. Bonjour! I confess that I totally slept on their debut game that came out in 2018 called The Messenger. Yeah, that totally flew underneath my radar, but I will say that a bunch of friends and colleagues have spoken about it very fondly. I kind of kick myself for not playing it, but you know, it is what it is. But no matter, Sea of Stars piqued my curiosity from the moment I first heard about it. I chose to play this on Nintendo Switch because, like I said, I'm multitasking a bunch of games, and I thought, you know what, this could be the perfect game on my to and fro commute from work, which is quite lengthy nowadays, and I could not have picked a better game for that. Perhaps the best place to start is to talk about the story, which may very well be the biggest highlight of Sea of Stars. No spoilers, of course, but for a brief synopsis, you play as either Valir or Zael, who happen to be destined to live their lives as solstice warriors. Together, they are able to channel the powers of the sun and moon respectively to perform what is known as eclipse magic. In essence, they are the only ones capable of fighting off the Dwellers, these monstrous creations from this evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. I won't go into any further detail to avoid ruining any surprises. At a macro level, this seems like the same old story we've seen time and again. Yes, the heroes go off on an adventure to fight evil and save the world from calamity. But what makes Sea of Stars rise above the crowd is in its execution on almost all fronts. You truly do amass quite the motley crew of heroes on your journey who each have their own distinct personalities and surprisingly deep historic backgrounds. This of course includes the villains, who are genuinely complex characters, and even though you obviously can't agree with their life choices, I can't help but at least on some ways relate and sympathize with some of their struggles and motivations. But by far the MVP of the show has to be your BFF, your childhood best friend, Garl. This guy is a shining beacon of light of positivity, joy, love, friendship, compassion, and just boundless generosity. I loved him from the second he appeared on screen, and my love for him only grew further and further with each new scene. He will without question be a fan favorite, and will likely become one of the most intriguing characters to come out in this year of gaming, and might very well end up being on the top of that podium should ever such a competition arise. And indeed, there's this genuine passion and joy that's just infused into this project. Even with the super dark subject matter at hand, I can only describe Sea of Stars as a game that's just brimming with love and positivity. Not only that, but has a slapping good sense of humor. The jokes always land, and there are more than a few clever clin d'oeils that act as Easter eggs to games of old. Sea of Stars is a love letter in every sense of the phrase. Not only that, there's some shocking twists and turns in the story that will take you by surprise. The stakes are high, and the consequences dire. So yeah, as far as the game's narrative goes, chef's kiss. Beyond the narrative, the game still has plenty of qualities. Look no further than the game's beautiful art style. This has to be one of the most lush and vibrant pixel art games I've seen in a minute. And there's also a great mix of animated cutscenes that really make the game pop with personality. But even without the extra cinematics added into the game is loaded with memorable moments. There's so many breathtaking vistas that have these very wow-inducing cinematographic moments that few pixel art games are able to achieve quite to this level, as well as some very lovingly crafted animations that breathe life into the varied characters you'll meet across your journey. To keep it simple, the game is a work of art. It truly is a wonderful homage to the classic JRPGs that many of us, myself included, grew up playing, such as the likes of Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, which even to this day, let's face it, are still considered to be in the upper echelons of the greatest games of all time. And incidentally, fans will likely recognize the name of Yasunori Mitsuda as a composer of classics such as Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, and the Xenogears series. Though to be clear, he makes a guest appearance as a composer on this game, not as the main composer. In reality, he didn't have all that much contribution in the game, which came as a bit of a surprise, but to be clear, this is not a knock in the game's soundtrack, because it is a modern retro banger. Shout out to the main composer, Rainbow Dragon Eyes, who it seems also collaborated with Sabotage Studios on their previous game, The Messenger. Furthermore, on the gameplay side of things, which we have yet to speak about, I am surprised by how good the level design was in this game. So I must say there's a very interesting navigation and flow of traversal in the environments that makes the game feel fresh and engaging throughout the entire duration. There's also a lot of clever puzzles sprinkled throughout the experience. There are no real brain teasers to be found in this game, not that it necessarily needed them, but they do help give the game some much needed variety, and they're always satisfying to complete. The turn-based combat itself is fun and engaging, and indeed takes up the lion's share of the game's experience, so I do appreciate the little clever tricks that they've added to spice up the gameplay a bit. It's something that helps not only make the game stand out from its peers, but also helps keep the game engaging throughout the entire experience, and not have you be on full autopilot mode as in too many games of its genre. Each character has their own unique spells, which helps to differentiate them in very meaningful ways. All spells and abilities have their own unique flavor and timing, so it's not just window dressing. And the added detail of perfect timing blocks to slightly reduce damage and gain back a bit of mana, as well as perfect timing your attacks for a little extra damage, always felt satisfying to pull off no matter how many times I've done it. And speaking of different characters, I do appreciate the game's rather novel approach to party setup. Gone are the days where you have to grind and level up each individual character. Actually, on that note, I never had to grind a single time in the entire game, which is a relief. Gone are the days where I just have to waste my time doing the same thing over and over and over again. But what I meant to say is that all characters level up in unison. It makes life so much simpler this way. And I do wish more games would do this. It is so convenient. I love it. And it's a major reason why mix and matching party members is so frictionless in Sea of Stars. It also helps that you don't have that many party members to deal with, so it never feels like a chore. Truly, less is more. And on that note, the game is roughly 20 hours long. Actually, with me taking my sweet ass time to finish this game, just under 25 hours. I can't tell you how refreshing it is to not get yet another 100 plus hour game again. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with those kind of games, of course. So yeah, I'm gushing all over this game, but it's not all sunshine and roses. There are a few things that hold the game back from true greatness. Not gonna lie, the pacing of the game, around the halfway mark of the game, it begins to sag a bit, and I don't seem to be the only one who shares this sentiment. The Moonrang ability in particular was getting kind of annoying to use. Not to say that it's a bad ability, it's actually one of the most useful abilities in the game, but it just takes so long to go through the motions of the entire combo. And once again, as satisfying as it may be, after you've done it a couple thousand times, and to piggyback on that theme, there is a bit of a lack of variety in character abilities, at least as far as individual characters go, however nicely personalized they may be. This issue is somewhat mitigated by having a growing party member at one point in the game, and the unique combo abilities that you can pair with different characters are without a doubt very, very cool. But to get enough currency to use those combo abilities requires you to use those same old tired abilities over and over again. And honestly, by the time I was reaching the last quarter of the game, it was getting a bit redundant. And as for the abilities you have outside of combat for puzzles and traversal mechanics, I gotta say they're just not the most versatile mechanics or gameplay ingredients you'll find in a game. They're not terrible by any means. They do help add a bit of variety in the gameplay, but there's just not that much variety that can be created from those mechanics and ingredients. I don't want to go too much more into detail to not ruin the surprise of what those abilities are, because it is a nice little, oh, okay, this is a little new, but even in its relatively short runtime, there's just not that much that is done with them as far as I'm concerned. So I'll just leave it at that. However, those are relatively minor issues in the grand scheme of things. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest sin this game commits is how the game organizes itself to tell me what the game's objective is at any given moment. Not gonna lie guys, I got super lost on several occasions, and not within the individual levels themselves. Once again, the level design, the traversal mechanics, and the flow of the environment is great and super engaging. That works beautifully, but I really mean in terms of the mission objective. Like, who am I supposed to talk to? What exactly I'm supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? There, I think there's a huge issue. And to be fair, I leave the door open to the possibility of me being the problem here who just can't fucking clue in on what I'm supposed to be doing. But when it happens several times to a level designer of all people who can't figure out what it is I'm supposed to do, I think there's a bit of a problem. Once again, I leave the door open to you guys pointing a finger at me and saying, this is a pepcac situation. So I think I owe you guys an example, once again, without spoiling anything. So there's this narrative event that happens. A character literally tells me that, hey, we need to take a boat, but the dock here has been destroyed, ravaged. We need to find another option. Okay, great. I leave the town and I go exploring everywhere in the world. I'm not finding any options. I don't know how long I was lost. But then the reality is, I just have to speak to that same character again and then a cutscene would ensue. Facepalm moment. And it wouldn't be the last time that something like that would happen. Please leave a comment in this video to let me know if you agree or disagree on this. I love the game, but this was the most frustrating and time-wasting part of the entire game. Alright, to wrap things up, Safe Stars is a wonderful homage to the old school JRPGs that I grew up loving. And it manages to breathe new life into those tired old bones. I had an absolute blast from beginning to end, even with some of its shortcomings. I could not recommend it higher to you if you're fiending for a great JRPG, especially if you are looking for something relatively short and don't want to invest 60 to 100 hours as most of these kind of games are. Honestly, I'm ranging anywhere between an 8.5 and a 9 out of 10. This is an absolute indie banger, and as far as I'm concerned, an instant classic. And when I think about it, this is probably the best game to counter Quebec in a hot minute. Finally, something positive I could say about Quebec right now. Alright, that's enough for now. As always, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you all very soon.